Today on Parenting Unplugged, I'm joined by two incredible midwives for an honest chat about the early days of pregnancy, why it can feel so lonely, and what no one really talks about preparing for birth. We're talking disconnection, support, and what actually matters in your birth plan. This one is for every mother-to-be. Hi, so I've got Sorcha and Sam with me today, who are both midwives. Can you take a second to introduce yourselves for the listeners today so they know exactly what it is that you do?
So hi, I'm Sorcha. I've been a midwife just under 10 years now and absolutely love my job.
So I'm Sam. I've been midwife now for over 16 years and a mum to 5 children. So balancing that as well.
Full on 5
Yes.
children, my gosh. Okay, so right, let's jump right into the questions. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, why does it feel so lonely in those early stages of pregnancy, that kind of 12 weeks before you've had that first scan or had chance to tell anybody?
I think, firstly, there's a lot of secrecy around when you first, because we know that the first early weeks of pregnancy, there's a higher chance of miscarriage. So a lot of ladies like to keep it to themselves for that reason, that announcement, and then, if something was to happen. And I think that can become quite challenging. And that's why I tend to be, there's that secrecy behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of emotion behind that as well. The first early 12 weeks, you feel a bit like, is this what I want? Is this not what I want? Was this planned? Was it not planned?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've got other children as well, because you sort of think, when with your first baby, it's very different than with your second or third baby, because you think sometimes I've got to share this love. And actually you feel guilty sometimes if you've got time with them and you're thinking, gosh, I feel awful. The first trimester no one gives as much credit to the first trimester as you should, because again, you've got that secrecy. You've got nothing to show as well. There's no bump, there's no appointments really. We had this conversation on the way here. There's no appointments until maybe 8 to 12 weeks when you have that booking appointment with the midwife. So you feel a bit left on your own. And there's we found there's a gap here of support. And that's what we're hopefully hoping to do with our business as well.
I love that, because you're so right. I think for me, I remember feeling that was when all my hormones really started ramping up, and you can be feeling a bit sick, your heightened sense of smell, and all these strange things are happening to you, especially if it's your first, and not knowing if that's normal because you're not really connecting or talking to other mothers yet because you've not told anybody, and that can feel quite isolating and lonely for sure, on knowing exactly if that's normal.
And the current maternity system, as Sorcha said, you don't get those appointments for the first 8. So you're on your own literally for the first month, not knowing. You're going on the basis of one pregnancy positive test, and then that's it till that midwife's appointment. And that's the time when the fetus is really growing. That's when the development's really taking hold. And to not have that opportunity to speak to somebody, to know even just things down to what you can eat and what you can't eat. I think, those conversations, that emotional support that you need isn't there. Yeah,
definitely. Even down to wondering, am I still pregnant? I know it sounds silly, but I remember thinking that, like you say, you've got this one pregnancy test to go off of, and a couple of weeks down the line thinking, am I still pregnant? You want that confirmation. And I think you really look forward to that first scan to actually see that baby and know that this is happening for real.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a big thing, isn't it?
It is a huge thing. And I think it's just not talked about enough as well for women. And some ladies don't get that first scan till 13 weeks because of different screening tests. It's just such a long time.
I think it's the hormones as well. And I think Google can be your best friend, but your worst enemy at times as well. And you think sometimes, I should be having tender breasts. I should be having this symptom. I should be feeling sick. Some women don't. And sometimes I think when you're pregnant and you've got awful nausea, awful sickness, you think, I wish I didn't have this. But at the same time, sometimes that's that reassurance of, okay, I must still be pregnant. I must still feel good because the hormones are still playing. So it's the hormones as well which have a massive impact.
Definitely.
Yeah. How do you think we can kind of balance that early emotion that we're going through then if you've got other children to be thinking about?
I think your support group is really beneficial at this stage. But as we said, it's a catch-22 because you don't want to tell too many people just in case. But I think it's about utilising your support group and being kind to yourself. I think as a parent, naturally, sometimes we're not so kind. We find the things that we feel like we're not doing correct. We live in a society that's full of comparison. We see a lot of stars, who seem to be doing so well and juggling everything, but there's a team behind them. Yeah. And it's just sometimes you and your partner, whether your partner's yours, for some women, they're on their own and with other children. So I think it's about just being really kind to yourself and utilising the support network that you have got.
And ensuring that you do take time for yourself and not feeling guilty and selfish for that. If you need a nap halfway through the day, have it. Because actually you need to make sure that you're 100%, not only for your children that you've already got, but also the fetus takes so much energy from you that have a nap. Allow yourself and just be kind to yourself. You deserve it. You're growing a beautiful baby.
But you're so right. That's the hard thing, isn't it, as a mother, is to actually be kind to yourself. You're so busy nurturing everyone else and putting maybe your other children's needs first. But actually to take care of that baby, you do need to take care of yourself. And if that is in the form of a nap and some rest for you, then that's what you've got to do, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. There's a lot of research out there that shows that stress in pregnancy is not beneficial to the growing baby. So it's really important is to try and minimise those stress factors. And as you say, taking that time.
Because if you don't, there's so much research, and the National Institute of Clinical Excellence states that women do become stressed, anxiety, depression can form even in antenatal periods because you're not looking after yourself, your well-being and your emotion. And actually, as little things as taking a nap, just being like, do you know what, I'm going to have a shower now, just for myself. It's the little things as a mother, isn't it? Yeah. And those things just make you feel, okay, I'm looking after myself now. Because you do get lost in the whirlwind of school run, feeding, and then at the end of the day you think, I haven't eaten today. And it's really making sure, actually, I'm going to take this half an hour to myself. My partner's got the kids. This is my time. I'm not feeling guilty. I'm with them 18 hours of the day. It's just making sure that you do take that time. It is difficult. I do understand.
No, but it's necessary, isn't it? And I think kind of having that awareness that we need to stop and try and do that. So how do you think we can trust our own instincts, and when to seek advice?
So the best thing for this is, what I usually say is, trust your instincts, but also trust your concerns. So we always go off of gut feeling in anything in life, don't we? You think, that doesn't feel right. It's exactly the same. If you think it's your body, it's your pregnancy, it's your decision. So if you think that when you are making a decision, you may not get the right answers, keep pushing until you feel like you've been heard. It can be difficult in the NHS now, and sometimes it's conflicting with what's on social media, what's on the internet. But actually, if you're seeking medical advice and you feel like you're not being heard, I'd say keep asking for help or go in another direction and see if you can speak to a manager or a matron. You need to be heard in your pregnancy, and that is paramount.
That's great to hear. Is it true you can ask for a different midwife, say you didn't feel that you were getting along with yours, or you didn't feel they were advocating for your needs?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can either change hospitals. You don't have to be at your local hospital. That people don't realise that. They think that because that's the one that they're allocated to, maybe that midwife, and then that hospital where she's based, that's where you need to have your baby, but not at all. You can pick any hospital that you are comfortable to have your baby in. You can have your antenatal care within your area, and you can have your baby at a different hospital. So if you're not getting on, it's really important that you have that relationship with your midwife. They're there to support you, and you should be able to have that open communication. So if you feel that you haven't got that rapport, then definitely ask for a different midwife.
Okay. And how do you go about picking the hospital, though? Because they don't do tours like they used to. What are we going off of as to deciding?
So Google, again, is your best friend for this. This happened after COVID. A lot of the hospitals, a lot of the maternity units offered the online virtual tours.
Right.
But I know at our trust and some of the London trusts, they do offer tours if you ask for it.
Okay.
So I think that's one thing to note. But also, you can literally go anywhere in the UK, anywhere in England. If you think, right, okay, I want to have my baby in Manchester and I live in London, you can. Any maternity unit will accept you. We're not, just like A&E will accept you. We prefer it when we have your scans and your blood tests because it does make our life easier. But you're welcome in any hospital. And I think that's good for you to know as well, because some people, when they go away for weekends with their partner or family, with visiting family in the north, actually you can still go to that hospital. Don't wait to come back to your local hospital if there's ever concerns. So you can offer that, or you can actually just speak to your community midwife and say, actually, I'm not too sure, can I come in? Beauty of maternity is you're not sick. Sometimes there are risk factors that you have in pregnancy, but it's the perfect part of the hospital, I say, because you're not coming in because you're poorly. You're coming in because you're bringing life into the world. So actually, we're here to support and serve you as a pregnant woman.
I love that. Okay, so there's a lot more choice than I think women are perhaps aware of.
And you can look, all maternity units have to provide their statistics of regards to the type of births they have, section rates, induction rates, facilities. And so you have that opportunity to go out and look at those CQC ratings as well. So getting a feel for the hospital that, you know, that if you're in an area that maybe you've had a poor experience with, you know, with regards to a family member or something, and you're not comfortable, it's really important that you're comfortable where you're going to have your baby. So just you do that research, absolutely.
Okay. So just for anybody listening, what is the actual role then of the midwife? How do you support throughout the labour and the birth?
So the best way I used to say this, whenever I walked into a room and a woman's in labour, I'll go, right, for the next 12 hours, I'm going to be your best friend. And the reason why I say this is I may not have ever met this woman before, but I have to advocate for you when you feel like you're in pain. I have to ensure that you've got adequate pain relief. I have to listen to your concerns. I have to listen to your birth plan and listen to you so you feel heard, not just, yeah. That's what you said. It's, okay, I've listened to you. Let's make a plan together. This is what's happening. So you understand it's your body, it's your choice. I'm serving you. I'm here to work for you. And the role of the midwife is primarily that, advocate and empower you in your decision making and to make sure that you feel heard.
I think that's key, isn't it? Is so that the woman knows exactly what's going on as well. I think lots of people, it can be a bit chaotic on the day. You're not feeling 100%, obviously. So sometimes it can feel a bit confusing as to actually what's going on. And you want somebody to advocate for you so that you know what's happening and you know what the plan is, even if the plan has changed from what you thought it was going to be.
Someone's got your back, basically.
You've got a birth plan and you come in, as you say, things may change, but our role is, as Sorcha said, is to advocate. So if there's something on your birth plan that you really don't want, or in heightened stages of labour, we're there to advocate that. And if there is a turn, it's be able to give the support the women with the decision, you know, the discussions that maybe the doctors may have if the doctors are involved, or if you're at home, just that process of advocating. And so we're supporting you with your birth plan and your rights. I feel that sometimes it gets lost that women have a right. You know, you don't have to have inductions. You don't have to have these things. You can make an informed decision, and that we're there to provide that information, that evidence-based practice for you to make that informed decision and not feel like you're bullied into something.
So who reads the birth plans? Like, what's beneficial to put in it or not? Because often we kind of feel this pressure to make a birth plan, and I don't really know many people whose birth went the same way as their birth plan.
So we usually say there's been a change over the last probably 10 years. I've noticed it's instead of birth plan, birth preferences. So what would you like to happen? And then we can discuss it. So as soon as you're allocated a midwife when you come into the ward, or if you're at home, your community midwife, but whoever's looking after you in labour, that midwife will read your birth plan and usually have a discussion with you as to why you've asked for these certain things. Some things are the standard, skin to skin, breastfeeding, that's sort of the standard for most people. But some people could say, actually, I don't want that injection to deliver the placenta. I want to do it all on my own. And then it's me to have my professional curiosity to have that discussion with you. Okay, why might that be? That's fine, we can do that. If there is a risk of bleeding, we can do this, but we will give you time and I will update you every point and you feel that you're heard. Okay, we have lost a little bit more blood now. What do you think? Are you happy? Your observations are stable. This is the plan. I'm happy so far. Let's get you up, mobilising naturally to deliver this placenta. So it's working together. We're a team in labour per se, and when you have your baby. So it's working with you. So birth preferences, but I would definitely say to put in it your pain relief, who you want in the room, who's got your back. And when you choose your birth partner, I always say bring someone who makes you feel safe and funny, like someone who's going to make you laugh.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this is because not everyone's birth partner has this. They don't always feel safe, and they don't always feel like they can be comfortable. And one of the primary things that happens in labour is you have to feel safe and not vulnerable in order for your labour to progress. I think sometimes with socials it gets a bit like the birth partner has to be there.
Right.
But actually, for you to make sure that you have the best and safe environment, it's working out who makes you feel safe, really.
Yeah, I think sometimes women have in the room who they feel they have to have, not who is going to be the right people for them. Okay, so you might have their mum or their sister.
Or the mother-in-law.
Or mother-in-law and the partner. But actually, are they going to advocate for you? And I think this is probably why there's quite a growth in doulas now, isn't there? Because women
power.
They want someone to be their voice, and that might not be their mum, and that might not be because there's an emotional attachment there, and not necessarily get that understanding of what needs to sort of their voice needs to be heard.
And you're so right, though, because often the birth partner is somebody who's emotionally involved with you, and therefore their kind of fear and worry is for you, whereas you of course you want that, but you also want them to be calm and collected so that they can advocate for you and make informed decisions rather than through fear, I guess, which you can see would happen perhaps if it's...
Some birth partners are phenomenal at that, and really you can see that in them. But if you think back in the olden ages, and even before sort of 1940s, it was a women's job, wasn't it? So it would be your auntie that comes to the birth, it would be sort of a colleague from down the road. It's a women's role. And actually being a midwife means with woman. And that's what our role is. It's not necessarily about the babies, it's about being with women. And when you're going through labour and even through pregnancy, it's for someone to be with you and make you feel heard. So it's really, I always say to all women, make sure you really have a think about that. And when I always say, have a practice labour. So when you're at home, get the environment how you want it, dim the lights, put twinkly lights up, put certain smells around, get yourself into an environment where you feel like, I actually feel like I can do this. And that's the environment. Whoever's in the room or whoever you think, I need that person, that's the person you need.
That's good advice. Good advice to put that thought into it before you make that decision and you get into the situation.
It's funny because when you're planning a wedding, you spend months and months planning a wedding, don't you? And you're to the fine art detail of how you want your table laid out. But with birth, that process isn't broken down so much. No. And it's such a transformation time.
Yeah. So true. So how long does the actual postpartum recovery take? I mean, I know we have the standard 6 weeks, don't we, and your 6-week checkup, but how long would you say really for anyone who's going through their first baby, what can they expect?
I think you need to be kind and say a minimum of a year. I think there's hormones, there's the emotional aspect as well. If maybe birth hadn't gone how you had imagined it to, there's those process and that transition, whether you're a relationship or two that now just become free, or whether your family has grown, that transformation takes some time. So I will always say to women, allow 12 months. The hormones, wouldn't you say?
And just, the adaptation of life. You, especially if it's your first baby, you're so used to, I'm just going to pop to the shops. Oh no, I've got to now bring someone with me. It's the little things that you don't necessarily take into consideration. Actually, it can be really lonely. The friends that you had before you got pregnant aren't around if they don't have children. They don't understand it. And I think it is be kind to yourself. The 6 weeks is, physiologically, we check you over to make sure that everything's healing and everything's gone back to a physiological state, which basically means your body has gone back to a certain pre-pregnancy state. But at 6 weeks, that doesn't mean, right, ready to go, let's go again. It's your body saying, inside I'm okay, but mentally, emotionally, as you mentioned, physically, if you think about the hair loss and things that you can actually experience.
Gosh,
all of that. No one tells you about the sexy things afterwards.
But you're so right. I think it takes a lot longer than 6 weeks. And I'm with you on a year. I've had 3, and I think it's at least a year before I start to feel like myself again. You know, to feel like my body has started to get anywhere where it was before, for my stomach muscles to fully go back together, the hair loss, all those things that, like you say, people don't talk about and we are just expected to get on with. And I think as well, depending on how long you breastfeed as well, for when you finish that, for the hormone drop after that as well, which can be a bit of a shock to lots of women.
It's quite a crash, isn't it? That hormone drop after, like when you finish breastfeeding. And there's that, I think there's always a process of grief that comes with that as well, because it's a point of change, and that's a process that you have to go through. So
you're so right. I've actually always found that a real point of grief, and it's a weird one to explain to my husband, because I can say to him, no, I am so done with breastfeeding, but be crying my eyes out over the fact that this could be the last feed tonight, because, you know, and it's a real emotional pull of giving that connection up, which has been such an amazing, wonderful journey, but it also being the last piece of that postpartum journey to then move on to a new chapter can be really emotional. I do feel like it's a pathway of grieving that you go through when you decide make that decision to stop breastfeeding. Whatever, how it doesn't matter whether that's on day 5 or on you know the end of month 12. There is that process there. Yeah. So what can we actually expect then at the 6-week checkup, just so people would know what to expect?
So have a voice, and the reason why I say this is sometimes it can get caught up to be a baby check rather than a postnatal check, and this is usually performed by your GP, and I say a head to toe check. It's a general well-being check. How do you feel? How is the breastfeeding going? How is your perineum if you had stitches? Feeling your uterus, so having a feel of your tummy, making sure your uterus feels soft, and if it is back down, but also your bleeding, because we know bleeding is, I think it's a shock to some women, because you've gone 9 months without a period and then now you start bleeding. You think, is this normal? Is it not normal? And it can stop and start and have brownie discharge and then end up, I don't know how vulgar I have to be on here. So
like
that
you
can
say,
change.
I think it can be a shock to lots of women because people don't talk about it. So I think people are often shocked by how long the bleeding can go on for as well. And they don't really know what to expect around that. And it's an awkward one to sometimes ask other people as well, isn't it?
And it's not out there, is it? Sometimes you have a quick Google, but there's not. You don't want to put it on Instagram or something. Oh, I've started bleeding again 3 weeks after I've had a baby. Is that okay? And actually, you don't feel like you can be heard in that. So that 6-week appointment is checking how has that been for you, your emotional state as well, because as we know, baby blues happen day 3 after you've had a baby, which is the norm. We know the crash of hormones, but actually that can continue and you can feel a bit low. And actually sometimes people grieve the pregnancy. I know you said you grieve that sort of postpartum, but people grieve the pregnancy and you get those phantom kicks sometimes. And it's a bit like, well, I miss having the bump. And it's there's a lot in this that people don't realise. It's not just you have a bump, you have a baby, you're done. It's there's so much more to it. So that's sort of the 6-week check. But I would definitely say to any woman who is having, or that's got coming up, their appointment's coming up, is to make sure that they do voice how they feel, how they're experiencing things. If they have any concerns, voice it. Definitely say, because if they need any referrals, that is the place that will do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and would you say it's normal to feel disconnected from the baby sometimes to start with?
I think so, absolutely. Yeah, and you'll see that more. There's a lot of reports out there for women who've experienced any birth trauma. That's association with a disconnection to baby. And I mean, you've done a lot of work on this, haven't you? With trauma, so you do debriefs and things.
I think it's hearing women. Women now have a voice, which I don't think they had 20, 30 years ago. If you speak to your parents or your mum, and I definitely have with my mum, and said, oh, how was your experience? Oh, it was awful. I didn't have a clue what was going on. They chopped me all the way through, and then had your brother, and then same with your sister, and then you flew out, nothing. I don't know where the midwife was. And then I sort of dug deep into that and thought, actually, you had some birth trauma there, but now we've got the birth trauma report, which has just been released, which is heartbreaking to read. But I think women are now saying, actually, I didn't agree with what happened to me. I didn't feel heard. I feel like I've actually gone through trauma, and trauma is individual to everyone. And I think I do something called birth reflections with my trust, and it's basically talking through the birth, about sort of 6 months. It can be a year, it can be any time after the baby's been born, but listening to them and saying and explaining to them, this is why this happened. And sometimes it's a bit of closure for women. But actually, we should be doing that at birth and actually saying to them, this is what's happened. And actually in the postnatal period, should we go through what's just happened? You just had a baby 24 hours ago. How do you feel? But
I think you're so right. I think there's not always that debrief, is there? And I think sometimes when you're reflecting, it can be a bit confusing as to what actually happened, and you can feel a little bit lost that you don't have the answers to all of that. So it does help women have that closure if you can get that debrief on exactly what happened to them and why.
And I think it would help, as you say, with that disconnection for some women with their baby, if they're having that discussion so in the early few days, not 6 months down the line, because it's kind of been brewed on then, and and that's, as you say, with the hormones and things, you're more at risk of postnatal depression. So having those discussions, and don't be afraid to maybe have those discussions if you're on the postnatal ward. So can I talk to someone about my birth? I just have some questions to ask, and that makes a real difference for when you go home and you are trying to connect with your baby. And your mind's not somewhere else thinking, did this happen? What happened there? You want to be focusing on your baby. You can't do that when you've got unanswered questions. So take that time and ask. I feel like women they don't feel like they can speak up.
Don't be a nuisance.
And they don't want to be a nuisance. But don't be a nuisance. Ask those questions. Like, it's fine to do that. We would rather you do that and not miss those early important days with baby because you feel disconnected because you've experienced something that you feel that needs to be answered.
And if you think about the hormones, we talk a lot about hormones and getting into labour, having high oxytocin, feel loved, don't feel vulnerable. It's exactly the same postnatally as well. In order to make sure breastfeeding works efficiently, but actually that you bond with your baby. If you have high stress levels and high adrenaline, which can happen after you've just been through an instrumental delivery or a cesarean section that you didn't plan for, and no one's really explained why it happened, you're all of a sudden filled with emotion and filled with these hormones that you sort of think, I'm looking at this baby, but I'm just trying to keep myself safe and alive. Yeah. And then now you're thinking, but I'm supposed to love you. How am I supposed to love you if I'm just trying to keep myself alive? And it goes hidden sometimes because we can't see it on a blood pressure or a pulse. We just need to talk. Yeah. So it's actually giving you the voice to say, actually, if someone asks how I am, just say no, because actually this is my time to get that support and help.
And I think just normalising that, isn't it? That the hormones after the birth, that's quite a process. Yes. So although you're supposed to now be a mum and step up to this role to take care of this baby that's not going to let you sleep and going to want to cluster feed, and you're going to have to deal with the milk coming in at 3 days, the bleeding, the birth trauma, the visitors wanting to visit the baby. There is so much going on and you just don't feel like yourself. It's almost sometimes a bit of an out-of-body experience, isn't it? That there is so much going on. And kind of normalising that this is the process, and to be a bit kinder to yourself and to allow yourself that time to maybe let those hormones settle down and to find your own rhythm with the baby and the breastfeeding or the bottle feeding, whatever you choose to do. And have more open discussion with that so that people know how you're doing as well, if they need to give you some space or some more support.
And I think that's about the birth visitors, just because you mentioned that. Birth, everyone wants to come within the first week. And then 4 weeks down the line, no one wants to see you and you feel a bit lonely, and that's the time that you need. So anyone who's visiting, always say, actually visit after a few weeks, give them the first week just to get home and get settled. And actually 4, 5, 6 weeks, bring food, bring lots of snacks, because that's what you need, because you're probably thinking, I'm not even thinking when I'm doing the food shop, but actually allow people to stay at home and be with their baby, let that bonding happen, because sometimes it can be overwhelming, like you said, everything that's just happened, and then everyone now wants to hug your baby and you sort of think, I haven't actually touched my baby today.
It's not easy to do though, is it? It's not easy to say, actually, no, you need to wait a week or 2 weeks to come and see me and baby, I'm not ready, because there will be someone. It's a bit like the wedding, not inviting some Aunt Bessie to a wedding. Someone will be offended by that, and naturally, as women nurturing, we want to please everybody, don't we? And sometimes by doing that,
especially when you're hormonal, it's incredibly difficult to hold that boundary.
So and by trying to please everybody, you end up not filling your own cup, which you need to do.
And that's why you need a good birth partner who understands this, who gets it.
Especially if you've got other children. I kind of learnt that by third time round to keep the visitors at bay, because I was stronger to do it, because I recognised that it was for the good of my other two.
Yeah.
They needed some time to adjust to the new baby and to mum breastfeeding all the time. And, you know, we didn't then need an onslaught of everyone else coming in to see the baby as well. It was chaotic enough as it was. So it kind of, we really stepped back and took that time. But I wish I had felt confident enough to do that first time round.
Yeah,
but
I think the first time round you just don't feel confident, do you? And you're going with the flow, and you feel this is the normal. But when you're on your, as you say, subsequent babies, you're like, no, it's a survival, and no one's coming round.
So
I'm still in my pajamas a week later, and that is absolutely fine.
Yeah,
whereas
don't
obviously the first one, you're like, I need to do my hair, my makeup, and then you feel really like you've let yourself down when you can't. But I think subsequent babies, you're just this is the flow, and this is fine.
Yeah, so true. Well, look, that is an absolute pleasure having that discussion with you guys, and I feel like we've chatted about everything that will hopefully help anybody who's expecting or in the early stages of having a newborn. So thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a great chat.